The reason we had Rachel Zegler on the docket is she's an asshole.
Now, one thing that is already universally known at this point by the general public is the fact that Disney is in full-on damage control mode.
I came back, the losses were around $4 billion a year.
Well, I know this point has been made, but this truly is the worst casting maybe in the history of the film industry. Has there been a film with worse casting than this? And I don't just mean the Snow White actress. Obviously, she's terrible, but both of them.
This is someone who is as entitled as, I don't need your business. You know what? Maybe Disney does. Maybe you're a tool, you're a pawn in this film. You didn't write it, you didn't direct it. You have nothing to do with the creation of Snow White. Right. You should shut up and do the job.
But I think the movie bombed because it's bad. Those CGI little people.
Now for Disney, as you probably remember, all of this publicity, the Zegler interviews, the Daily Mail leak, caused a lot of unexpected, for them anyway, pre-production problems. People weren't supposed to see and understand just how unwatchable the new Snow White was going to be. It was supposed to be, kind of a surprise, but now there was no hiding.
This is truly she has to go. I'm sorry, Disney. She has to go.
Now, one thing about Rachel Zegler is that we know that she's not helping at all one bit.
But these guys at Disney, they're not that bright, they're not that smart, and we see that because they can't come up with any new IP. Why not write some new movies? You guys sit around, you have billions of dollars. They keep going back and rewriting the classic.
Disney is having its own problems. They're finally releasing the latest adaptation of Snow White, but they are scaling back the Hollywood premiere of the film. Kinsey, why is that?
Because Rachel Zegler is a PR nightmare.
You guys. Disney's new live-action remake of Snow White debuted this weekend, and it's an even bigger dud than anticipated.
Neither of them make any sense for their roles. We've already covered how Rachel Zegler is a terrible choice for Snow White. Nothing about her says Snow White, and that's even leaving aside the fact that she openly detests the story, as she's said many times during this disastrous PR campaign. But Gal Gadot, who plays the Queen, the first problem is that she's the evil queen. The evil queen is supposed to be envious of Snow White's beauty, and that is just not believable. It is just not, even in a movie with magical mirrors and dwarves and all that, in a fairy tale, that strains my ability to suspend disbelief. I cannot buy that Gal Gadot is angry that she's not as beautiful as Rachel Zegler. I cannot buy that.
I think it's fair to say that no one can stand the star of this movie.
One of the reasons why Rachel Zegler sticks around is she's got a beautiful voice and she has some talent. So I think that certainly helps her because she's a PR nightmare. I don't know how anyone would hire her.
Controversy has swirled around Gal Gadot's new movie, also starring Rachel Zegler as Snow White. A lot of people don't like her. A lot of people don't like her either. She's got a big mouth. She talked trash about the original movie.
Given all the behind-the-scenes mayhem, I expected a Frankenstein's monster were seen to be stitched together. I think a lot of these live-action updates are really hard to watch. They've really done so much stepping on rakes over the last few months with this project where the box office is just not going to recover.
Oh, man.
Hello, Disney. You're going to have to redo your film again because this woman is a pig and you fired Gina Carano for far less than this nonsense.
Let's discuss how Disney and Rachel Zegler ruined our Let's Set the Scene. Once upon a time, a multinational entertainment conglomerate known as the House of Mouse chose to remake one of its oldest classics. The cherished Snow White narrative with a remake catastrophe that is wrecked by Megyn Kelly and the rest of the Globe Wilds were at it. Theoretically, this should have been an easy slam dunk at the box office. Get a talented young star, dress her up in the iconic outfit, add a few glittering CGI creatures, and watch the money come in faster than you can say bid. Snow White is the cartoon that came out when dinosaurs were still roaming the earth. Or, at least it feels that old.
Babu.
Make it or no?
Well, the CGI dwarfs did. Of course, that goes back to the original controversy where Peter Dinklage, a very talented little person actor, said, "Why?"
However, as luck would have it, they chose a fairly contentious candidate for the lead role, one who is able to irritate almost all ardent Disney fans.
it's crisis mode when it comes to Disney, having to backtrack. She talks about how this isn't a fairy tale about falling in love with the prince. This is a fairy tale about fighting your...
Additionally, there were a number of casual watchers before the first teaser was released. Let's call her the actress who won't be named, Zegler Rachel.
To everyone who hates when I win, the winged victory came to the Louvre in pieces, and people still line up to see her.
Oh my God.
And I can only hope.
What does that mean?
That despite my flaws, and despite my cracks and my breaks, and there are many of them, that at every premiere and everything I do, people will wait in line.
However, in a bizarre story twist, her casual comments about the 1937 original being out of date and useless caused an online outcry that sounded so epic that you thought the Magic Kingdom was on fire.
Version of Snow White is different, and it's more of a 2022 version of Snow White. What did you mean by that?
I mean, the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very...
Pitchforks. Infuriated fans took to the internet like fireworks on July 4th, demanding an explanation, an apology, or at least some regard for the original.
Oh, that 1937 movie, that's just, it's tacky, it's weird,
Since, let's be honest, even if you think anything from 1937 is cheesy in private, you definitely don't want to bring it up in public, especially if you were actually hired to play that role in a multi-million-dollar remake.
The ideal choice for the lead role in Sweet Snow.
Though our Noto Fair princess wasn't finished yet, she doubled down and made more snide comments about how the old movie was strange and didn't align with modern values, essentially writing off the entire concept of the classic story. It's similar to complaining that musicals have too much singing while you're the main attraction on Broadway.
Her love story with a guy who literally stalks her. Yeah. Weird.
Let's face it, this was going to be a PR meltdown for the ages. Disney's PR team must have been downing coffee like water at that point, frantically planning emergency damage control. As expected, the backlash went into overdrive, and fans who had previously been interested in the new adaptation began brandishing "Not My Snow White" hashtags. It was a complete circle, witnessing the avalanche of criticism. In a series of tearful interviews, Rachel Zegler seemed to change her mind more quickly than a panicked motorist on a one-way street. She spoke about how much she loved Snow White, how she had always admired the character's bravery and innocence, and how thrilled she was to continue the legacy.
Now she's trying to sell I love Snow White. I love everything about the whole story. Here she is more recently trying to change the messaging. This is actually Wednesday.
Thank you so much for being here. And to see this is really emotional for me, so I'm going to try to not do that. I love her,
she's
and
emotional
her
now.
Superpower is her heart. It's nothing supernatural. It's something that all of us have. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy Snow White. Thank you, guys.
I'm sorry. That was acting.
Indeed, the meltdown worsened when Snow White eventually hobbled into theaters, appearing less like a traditional fairy tale and more like a 3 a.m. streaming service budget disaster. Please remember to like and subscribe before we get ahead of ourselves because, let's face it, without your support, I would be nothing. Now, let's get back to the tea and watch the epic train wreck unfold. If you thought that one bite of a poisonous apple was bad, wait until you see how badly a star's remarks can ruin a major production. Fans initially thought that Rachel Zegler, who recently finished her role in a musical that apparently wasn't glamorous enough for her, would be the new Snow White. However, in a startlingly short amount of time, she declared that the 1937 Snow White was dull, out of touch, and essentially an outdated relic that had no place in the modern world. The response was instantaneous. Wait, what did she just disparage the beloved cartoon that essentially created this company's empire? Asked Disney acolytes.
Now she's trying to reinvent herself because there's been so much blowback, and you can only imagine the studio calls about this woman behind the scene. Like, oh my God, we're $242 million in, and our lead actress hates our film, our actors, our story.
Needless to say, no one purchased it because her backpedaling speed could have earned her an Olympic gold medal. At the same time, viewers at home were either holding their popcorn or rolling their eyes in shock. thinking it was as real as a spam email saying you want a free app.
Film with an understanding of the true meaning of fairness, of what it means to be fair in this world. There is a message that's been carried on for almost 90 years now from the original animated classic. That is, fairness is what is within. Fairness is to do with your heart, the way you treat the people around you, and it has nothing to do with what you look like, and that's the misunderstanding between Snow White and the Evil Queen. I think it's such an important message, and the way that Disney has elevated it and brought it to this new audience is...
In the meantime, the House of Mouse continued clumsily to use teasers, trailers, and marketing tie-ins to hype up the next movie, but the damage had already been done. As if the Snow White drama wasn't enough, the actress also openly complained about her experience on West Side Story. Yes, the role that allegedly catapulted her into the Hollywood stratosphere. She made it seem like the worst job in the world to star in a lavish musical directed by a legendary filmmaker. Memes, sarcastic jokes, and random jabs were all over social media, comparing the new Snow White to everything from a cheap knockoff to a cautionary tale on how to enrage the entire Disney fan base in record time. Considering that's the best way to keep fans loyal, isn't it?
That was a Spielberg movie, so that was kind of a surprise. But if you're a studio, if you're a director, if you're a casting director, you've got to think twice or three times before hiring her. Listen, she's talented, she's attractive, she's got skill, but there are a lot of actresses in Hollywood who bring all that to the table and are not going to absolutely sabotage your work.
Now that she was disparaging the movie that made her famous and the iconic project that was supposed to make her a household name, even people who had never heard of her before began to raise their eyebrows. Something was wrong, and skepticism increased, and the unstoppable PR snowball continued to roll downhill, leaving a trail of disinterested audiences' eye rolls and negative headlines in its wake.
Behind the scenes, you guys know as well as I do that those executives like Spielberg are looking at that saying, Rachel Zegler can F right off.
That might have been funny enough on its own, watching someone burst the bubble of their own success, but then came the final gut punch, the actual release of the Snow White adaptation. This is where the story really cemented itself in the annals of box office disasters. Despite all the controversy, the House of Mouse pushed forward, presumably thinking that controversy sells tickets. But when the film finally hit theaters, the reviews were harsh, the audience was uninterested, and the atmosphere was essentially, "We tried to warn you." According to multiple reports, the studio lost millions of dollars, so much that if you stack the money physically, it had likely reached the top of Cinderella's castle.
Viewed in the United States at number 1 with $43 million. Decent, but not a blockbuster. And far below projections. Internationally, a similar story. Overseas, Snow White took in $44.3 million in its opening weekend, bringing the total to just $87.3 million, with a budget of around $209 million. That means Snow White is destined to be one of the biggest bombs in Disney history. It will not recoup.
Even the most devoted Disney fans appeared to shrug or, worse, deliberately avoid purchasing tickets rather than waiting in queue at midnight dressed as princesses. In the middle of all of this, the show's star appeared as though she would prefer to be somewhere else. Any hopes of a successful Disney blockbuster were dashed, and the piles of unsold merchandise and clearance rack plush dwarfs were left to gather dust. The theaters were half empty, with the crickets in the back row providing the only applause. It was as if the real magic spell had been cast on the audience's wallets, ensuring they stayed firmly closed. For the few who did watch it, many complained about everything from the strange tone to dubious creative choices that deviated so much from the original that it was hardly recognizable. The whole fiasco was so massive that it almost immediately became a Hollywood warning. Never work with someone who disparages your classic and your brand before the movie has even been released. If that isn't the decade's biggest moment, I don't know what it is now that the movie has been officially declared a failure and the House of Mouse is counting its losses. The internet, the rumor mill, is whirling rapidly. Rumors of widespread layoffs. Some people are furious that the original dwarfs were passed over for CGI made-up ones, and let's just say that the genuine ones weren't pleased about it. executive teams have been reorganized, and future remakes are being quietly shelved.